everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from gorgeous, if a little still too hot, Salt Lake City, Utah.
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
The podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up on the show today, Dan, Trump. We're going to talk about Trump, and we're going to talk about white evangelicals and an article that we both read.
Are we supposed to read that?
About maybe why white evangelicals did vote for Trump. And it's not for the reasons that liberals like to think. And so I think it's actually it's an interesting take. And one that
it's worth talking about, if even just if it's just sort of as a discussion about what America is and moment, why we're that way.
Yeah.
And don't expect it to sound good. Don't expect us to come out rosy on this one.
Oh, Americans? America? Yeah.
America as a concept, as a
I don't
place.
think many people are too delusional at the moment about
that ship has sailed.
Country. Yeah, I think we all know, Dan. We got problems.
We're not the shining city on the hill or whatever anymore.
No.
That's
we're the smoldering shit pile in the Dell.
We're the tire fire that's stinking up the place.
All right, Dan.
It's sad to be American.
Oh, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's the other ones who are ruining America.
Right. Yeah, we're the good ones. It's nice to assure oneself.
All right, Dan.
Yeah.
What do you? When COVID-19 first hit,
12 years ago.
12, going on 13. Did you have any thought about what it might mean for religiosity in America? Like, did you think that maybe people might the fence sitters might sort of find faith again? Was that a thought that maybe you had? I had this thought. So I'm just wondering, did you?
No, I didn't think that. I have given up predicting in the universe because it's starting with with the 2016 elections. I have now realized I have no handle on what human beings will do.
Yeah.
And it'll just go left every time I think it's going to go right.
Well, I think a lot of people probably did think like I did, where there might be sort of this impulse, right? That people who weren't really, they just didn't go to church, right? But they still maybe kind of sort of believed in God. And so maybe those people would return, right? And we would see maybe an uptick, in America in sort of religious observance and whatnot. Well, it turns out that it is the exact opposite. Or at least according to the State of the Bible survey that was just released this last week by the American Bible Society. It was the 10th such survey that they've done. They started in 2011, right?
Okay.
And they looked to see how many what percentage of American adults consider themselves to be sort of scripture engaged, right? That's their metric. But they look at how frequently people read the Bible, and sort of how nobody's
ever read the Bible,
and what they consider its impact on their relationships and choices are, right?
Sure.
In the 6-month span between January and the end of June, Dan.
Yeah.
The number of scripturally engaged Americans dropped from 28% to 22.7%.
Wow.
That's 13 million people who previously went to Scripture to seek solace or ideas for better living or whatever, who stopped doing that.
Who just basically were like, oh, this thing doesn't do anything.
I mean, it's hard to read into exactly what it is. I mean, the article kind of speculates, like, is this just because they don't have time? Because these are people who've got kids at home and a job that they're, telecommuting on, like, is it just people being really busy, or is it potentially what's more likely in my mind, which is what you're saying, at least to a certain extent, right? And no matter what, these are people who had a habit. These are 13 million people who had the habit of going to Scripture, who now have broken that habit and are going to, maybe because they've lived this long, not, without this impulse, maybe, right? Who are going to be doing it less. I think it's huge. They also already, though, over the course of the entire year, daily reading slipped from 14% to 9%.
Oh, good.
And those who read the Bible several times a week dropped from 14% to 12%. There were some other interesting numbers in here. Over the course of 10 years since they first did this, it went from 64 million people saying they never used the Bible to somewhere between 87 to 90 million people today saying that they never use the Bible. So
actually admitting to it.
Yeah.
The number has always been the same, but the number of people who actually cop to it, that's a different story altogether.
I mean, they don't get into that and whatnot. But let's see, what was this? Apparently women who've always led men in Bible engagement now slightly trail men, which does kind of, again, fit with women are probably a lot busier than men right now. Like religious-y types, right?
Sure.
Because they probably are holding... There's probably not a good, solid division of household labor, right?
I think
more
that's
sort of
fair to say.
Bible-oriented homes,
where if everybody's trapped at home, it's not the husband who's keeping the household together.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so I just thought that was really interesting and really, just completely throws that whole theory or that fear out the window. That there might be sort of an upswing in religious observance. I think it's great. I think it's awesome.
And also, here's another interesting fact. People haven't been going to church.
Yeah.
So maybe when they were reporting that they were engaged with Scripture, they were counting what they heard from their pastor or whatever.
That's quite possible. But also they're not going. So this is all part of my big mess, right? Which is they're breaking these habits. People are not going to church, especially, Mormons, it's basically churches shut down, right? And people in the largest numbers imaginable are finding out that having 2 weekend days to themselves is way better than just having 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Even without the brunch. Which that's the ideal thing, is if you can skip church and do brunch.
We need to. Yeah, you're right. That's the one thing they're not getting. That would be the nail in the coffin.
Those poor bastards. They're getting the advantages of not church, but they're not getting the brunch.
Yeah,
it's a rough time.
Yeah, it is why pastors are fighting tooth and nail to get the churches back open, right? They know this. They know that their livelihoods are at risk because people, they're not going to be giving if they're not coming to church. Not at least not in the same volume, right?
Right.
And then added on top of that, they are going to lose parishioners. They are just going to lose members of their communities.
There's going to be people that just don't come back.
Yeah. There are people out there who are learning a different way to live right now. And it feels okay. And in fact, it's better in so many ways. So,
Well, not going to church is definitely better than going to church, though I don't think that my current lifestyle is better than it was before the stupid COVID. I'll say that.
Right.
It's driving me
Yours.
bonkers.
Right. But imagine if you'd had to go to church.
Well, that would be a big improvement. I grant that. Yeah. Well, so speaking of churches, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Jehovah's Witnesses, who are kind of like Mormons who didn't know how to invest. Because they're basically the same organization with a few little different flourishes and not that $100 billion that the Mormons have.
They did okay when they sold off all their property in, what was it? In New York, right?
In Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they may have done okay there, and they do okay. You know, they're definitely not poor. And that's demonstrated by the fact that they recently sued the pants off of some guys, and it's an unfortunate thing. Ryan McKnight and a guy named Ethan Dodge. Now, we've talked about Ryan McKnight before because he was the one who developed what is now called faithleaks.org. It's a group that now calls themselves Truth and Transparency. And it's basically sort of a whistleblower / watchdog, kind of a WikiLeaks, but for religions.
Right.
I think both these guys started out Mormon, and they kind of got their start on this by being the repository through which people could sneak inside documents out of Mormonism and get them published onto the web and get people knowing about what was going on on the inside.
Right.
Well, they opened their doors up wider than just the Mormon Church and got managed to find a whole bunch of videos that were made by the Jehovah's Witnesses. And those videos were basically just, YouTube propaganda videos. They were meant to be only internal for themselves.
Right.
And, they got distributed by McKnight and FaithLeaks. Well, they sued. And here's the thing. Fair use is a tricky concept and not tremendously well legally defined.
Right.
What we're talking about is like who has the right to to publish something to YouTube, and it if it's a journalistic thing, frequently you can say, look, I have a journalistic reason for publishing this, even though I didn't make it, I don't own the copyright of it or whatever.
Right.
It's kind of how you and I, it's the principle that we use to play video or to play audio from Pat Robertson or whatever.
Right.
And
we've never been caught.
Right. Well, yeah, nobody's ever challenged us on it.
Right,
and the truth of the matter is that if anybody did challenge us on it, we would immediately fold. We would cease and desist. Toot sweet. And the reason is because we don't have any money to fight the fight. Well, these guys tried to raise some money to do that fight, and unfortunately came up quite short, and have recently settled with the witnesses and have taken down all of the things that they published, and they ended up having to fold. They figured they needed about $40,000 to mount a legal fight, and probably some help from some heavier hitters in the legal world. They didn't get it. They took in about $13,000, but that's not going to be anywhere near enough. So they settled, and it's an unfortunate thing. It is a sad moment in the fight for transparency with regards to religion.
Well, yeah,
in these United States.
Yeah, so when you say that they folded, do you mean that their organization closed?
I mean that they folded, meaning they stopped fighting.
Right. Okay.
So the organization still exists, such as it is.
It just sets a really dangerous precedent for future people. Like, they know that they're vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And so this is probably not going to be the first or the last, rather, religious organization that comes after them.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Mormons now sued.
No, I'm surprised they didn't sue before. But
I think they play an interesting game where, I don't know, J-Dubs. I guess.
I don't know what the J-Dubs are on about, because basically, once the cat's out of the bag, it's kind of. I mean, I guess it's just to terrorize them into never into never doing anything like that again.
It's to send the message to others that they're going to come after you. And it costs these guys $10,000. So guess what? Are you ready to pay $10,000? Right? Like it was $15,000 in you.
$15,000 in damages was the agreed upon amount, and
there's a chilling effect, and that's what they're going for, right?
These guys had to promise to, quote, never again publish copyrighted material owned by Watchtower.
Yeah, that's rough. That's brutal.
Yeah,
they forced them to, betray part of their mission, right?
Yep, their entire mandate down the toilet.
Yeah, so
because they couldn't afford the legal battle.
Yeah, that
a disappointing moment in the fight for transparency. But
religious bullies getting their way. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. But it's the state of the world currently.
Yeah. Well, Dan.
Yeah.
Here's some people trying to be religious bullies, I guess. There is a couple, I guess a soon-to-be married couple in Minnesota. Michigan.
Okay.
Sorry, in Michigan. That they have had their wedding, sort of the wedding venue space booked since last year. Since May of 2019.
Sure.
And they made plans at that time for their wedding to take place July 24th. So that's actually going to be the day before this episode posts.
Right.
So it's a little tricky to talk about on the show because we don't have a full conclusion to this story, but they are suing the state over their COVID sort of lockdown rules, right? Because the state of Michigan has limited indoor gatherings to 10 people and outdoor gatherings to 100 people.
Sure.
And they feel like, it seems like they have a very high opinion of what their wedding really is going to amount to, because they are arguing that it is going to be a religious event.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, traditionally weddings are often have a religious bent to them. They are a service, a religious service.
Well, they have booked for their religious event a former furniture factory that's been turned into a venue, right?
I was really hoping you were going to say a strip club, but okay, I'll accept it.
It's called the Baker Event Center, and they have argued. Let's see. They said the plaintiffs have want to exercise their right to religious freedom and expressive association by having their wedding at the Baker Events wedding property. This is their chosen place of religious worship for their wedding. Now, I get it. I mean, you're right. There is sort of a religious ceremonial aspect to a lot of weddings,
and there will probably be a pastor there. Or
marriage is considered a sacrament, right? In a lot of religions, and so yes, okay, but those are when it is a sacrament, it is performed, from my understanding, in a church, right? And by a priest or an ordained minister, right?
Sure.
And so I do think that this is a little bit of a stretch, It doesn't say what denomination they are. My guess is they found religion very quickly in order to make this argument, right?
Right.
But this is all in an effort to circumvent, these limits that the state has placed on gatherings. Right. They're saying that the event space that they have plenty of hand sanitizer stations, and that they're going to they're going to social distance and wear masks and this and that. Fuck that. No, they're not. She's going to have some white lacy mask on. No, come on. No. This is not
and they're not going to enforce it with their guests.
No,
so
because they clearly are not the types. Right?
Yeah.
Like these are this is these people. This is Karen and Kevin, right? Getting married, and even though their names are David and Kylie, but nonetheless, I just thought that's pretty amazing, right? That they would have the gall. So maybe next week if we'll have an update, but
yeah, I just it's one of those things. Anyone who, by the way. If you think that the event that you're going to, if you have been assured that the event you're going to is going to be COVID friendly and that everybody's going to be masked and whatever, you just haven't been to any events yet. Because listen, Andrea and I were invited to a party that was for a friend's birthday.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, I'm not going to go unless it meets all of the following criteria. Okay. And I was like, it's got to be a small event, fewer than 10 people. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to be masked, and it's got to be outdoors, and everybody's got to agree to be socially distant, 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
And everyone agreed to that. I was assured.
Oh boy.
We get there, everybody gets literally a drop of alcohol in them, and they're fucking hugging and kissing and touching each other. I was like, it doesn't work. That's my point is, it doesn't work.
Oh no! So, did you just run? I did have to push people away from me. I literally was pushing my fake kicking people away. 6 feet, 6 feet, stay away. Dan, you solidify a reputation that day.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm going to own it. As a matter of fact, I'm working on building that reputation.
Curmudgeon?
Just so that people... Well, guy who insists on the rules of that.
Wow,
because it's
Dan.
Kind of important.
Insisting on the rules.
That's right.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of insisting on rules, this one going in the direction of bad rules, I'm going to tell us a story of Jesse Hammonds, who is a trans man who was working with his surgeon, his doctor, and they were getting ready to give him a hysterectomy.
Right. Okay.
Which is a useful thing for a trans man to have, I would imagine. And it was all scheduled. It was all ready to go. The operation was scheduled at the University of Maryland St. Joseph Medical Center. Now, the key words in that phrase, the little giveaway, is the St. Joseph part, because it's a Catholic hospital. And when a Catholic hospital hears about something nice happening for a trans person, they make sure to poop all over it. So what they did was wait until the day before the operation, which means prep work had all been done. This guy had literally... Now, Andrea has had a hysterectomy. I've been through this process. You do prep. You prep your lives. You're getting yourselves ready for some weeks/months of different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's recovery. There's a lot
serious
that needs
recovery.
To be taken care of.
Yeah.
It's a lot less dangerous a thing than it used to be. It's a pretty high rate of success as surgeries go, but there's serious recovery involved afterwards.
Yeah.
So this man, Jesse, what's his name, Hammonds, had been through all that prep work, and then the day before, the hospital called in and said, "Nope, we're not doing it."
For
the surgeon
for
was
maximum
ready.
effect, right?
Yeah,
They just timed that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in amongst all of the really bad decisions that have happened recently in our Supreme Court, there was one good decision that happened, and that was that that they decided that the 14th Amendment of equal protection applies to trans people.
Right.
So that's cool. But they also had but as part of that decision, they said it doesn't apply to religious institutions. So Hammonds has filed a lawsuit and has used that decision as the basis for that suit. And I have no idea and zero prediction as to what will happen with that lawsuit.
They need to really limit, and I know they're not in the mood to do this, but to limit what kinds of religious institutions enjoy these exemptions, right? Because,
my God.
I'm sorry, a hospital should not have this exemption.
Let me tell you something. Here's how they limit what kinds of institutions get this kind of privilege. Christian.
Right.
That's the kinds of institutions that they care about.
Yeah, exactly. No, totally. And they really love the Catholic ones.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they're especially fond of those ones.
Fun. All right, Dan.
Yeah.
I had a similar story to this one last week, I think, maybe on the show, maybe 2 weeks ago. But I felt that this one was definitely worth bringing up because the issue is going to continue during this beautiful, beautiful COVID summer that we're enjoying. And that's just going to just kind of transition into a beautiful COVID fall.
Don't make me think about that. It's not nice.
Nonetheless, down in Texas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's a church by the name of Fellowship Church. It's in one of the metroplex cities by the name of Grapevine. And they host every year multiple Christian camps, for the kids. So the kids go to camp for a week. It's one of those, an away camp, right?
Sure.
And they have their retreat center is called Alazo Ranch. It's located about 85 miles east of Dallas.
Okay.
For those of you who care about such details. And they have been this year hosting camp. Why wouldn't you? What could possibly be going on in the world that would make you want to limit kids getting together in close proximity, engaging in physical activity, singing, doing all that kind of crap? What could possibly go wrong this summer?
Can't think of a thing.
Well, turns out that COVID-19 struck hard.
Oh no! Who could have predicted?
The camp had assured parents that they would be following CDC guidelines, and in fact, the kids were required to bring a mask.
Which you would think, if you're following CDC guidelines, that means we're not opening,
right?
But no, we don't have a good CDC. The U.S. Center for Disease Control doesn't work now; it's broken.
So apparently, to make the parents feel a little bit better about sending their kids off to this camp, the kids were asked to bring their masks. Before the kids were allowed to come, they took their temperatures, and the campers had to wear their masks for the bus ride out to the ranch, right?
Sure.
But they were allowed to take them off as soon as they arrived.
Right.
And
they immediately started making out with each other.
And they also had taken all the kids' phones, so they couldn't communicate with their parents. Now, whether this was all part of like the same scheme, I don't know. That's probably the standard thing that they do. They just want to like have the kids' attention during the week and let them focus and let them disconnect from the world. I actually really applaud anybody who takes a week off of their connectedness, right? I think that's a great idea. But what this had the effect of is that kids couldn't report back about things like this one kid. The article that I read about this talked about extensively, whose camp counselor, who was in his room, had to go home early with a 100.4 fever. When the kid comes home, when this camper, not the counselor, when he comes home and tells his mother about this, she immediately arranges for a coronavirus test, even though he didn't have a fever or any symptoms. And of course, he tested positive, right?
Right.
And then later, she gets a phone call that went to voicemail from the ranch, and it says, "We just want to make sure you had an incredible time at Alazo Ranch." He says the church followed every single procedure, actually gone above and beyond that, and anybody who may have exhibited any symptoms of anything, headache, cough, sneezing, whether it be a temperature, anything, we were on top of it. He goes on to explain that a counselor in her son's room at camp had some mild symptoms and was sent home as a precaution. And he doesn't know, the church doesn't know if the counselor tested positive for COVID-19 or not.
Wow.
But photos from the camp that were posted on Facebook definitely show that their idea of what CDC guidelines and procedures were completely wrong. Completely. All the pictures show kids grouped together inside and outside. And as far as this woman can tell, speaking to other parents, she has counted on her own 80 kids who've tested positive.
Whoa!
The camp is...
That is not a small number.
The camp is saying that about 3 people have tested positive, like the church is. But just people sharing their own stories, they've tracked down 80.
Wow.
If you can fucking believe that.
That is intense.
So
that is not small.
No. And these are not huge like numbers of kids, right? Now it's multiple weeks. Let's see. Again, this is coming from people who sort of that are reporting their own experience. But a kid who was a counselor said that there were about 200 to 300 kids who attended camp the first week she was there, and at least 140 kids were there at the camp the last week that she was there. She said that this counselor kid, she said that the only people at the camp who wore masks or gloves were the women serving food.
Oh my God.
So,
well, there you go. I've said it before and I'll say it again. They're culling their own herd. They're literally, it's just shocking to me how willing people are to put their own people in danger.
Well, yeah. I mean, it has been, the messaging that they are receiving is that it's not that serious, right? It's serious. Right. It's serious, but it's not that serious, right? Like, it's something you want to wash your hands a little more, but
don't really inconvenience yourself over it.
Don't be a dick when they ask you to put a mask on at the Walmart, just do it, right?
No, they're being a dick. Like, half of them are calling for people to be dicks to people. Like,
well, but the tone, I think, is going to be changing because Senor Donald Trump has actually come out now. I mean, everybody knows this, about promoting masks and the use of them.
Yeah, amazing. He's literally only 6 months too late.
It's unreal, isn't it?
It's astounding how good he's been on this whole thing. He's really amazing. I am going to take us now to the military of these United States of America.
Okay.
Now, we've reported on a few stories in the last year or so about shit going down within the military. For instance, there was a chaplain who sent out an email that was included I don't remember what it was. It included like a book or quotes from a book that basically said that COVID-19 was God's punishment or something like that. And people were sort of up in arms about that, and that was taken down. There were some chaplains who were using the official Army, chaplaincy, some official social media to post scriptures and stuff. And, there were some objections to that, to that sort of thing, raised in no small part by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, and Mikey Weinstein, who's president and founder of that organization, which they're doing great work. They're out there just making sure. The whole point, as with all of these groups that are trying to keep, maintain some semblance of a wall of separation between church and state, is just, this is supposed to be a pluralistic society. Stop forcing everybody to hear about Jesus.
Right.
Well, that has been vaguely effective. It's still not, like, the culture of the United States military is still wildly Christian, but there has been some effect to this work, and it's been enough that Congress members have taken to writing to the Secretary of Defense to tell him how concerned they are that anybody but Christians is allowed to say anything they want to. It is basically the leading Congress. It's 20 conservative lawmakers are part of this group, led by two Dougs, Doug Collins of Georgia and Doug Lamborn of Colorado, and they are furious, just really, really upset that the military is taking baby steps toward inclusivity in terms of their religious stuff, and they are trying to make sure that they get back on track to being a complete theocracy. It should not be lost on anyone that this is an election year,
right?
And that a lot of these Congress people need to posture for the religious right in this country, and they needed something to be mad about.
Right.
So it is such a stupid amount of things that they are complaining about, but they're definitely making some molehills into some grand mountains.
Yeah.
And to their credit, it doesn't seem like the military is taking the bait.
Fantastic. I would love to read some of these letters that are being written. Right. Like dear Doug.
Oh my God.
These people, they don't understand freedom of religion. Right.
Yeah.
The big concern that they're phrasing it. Because it's like, how do you argue, right, for like a strong Christian presence under the guise of like freedom of like the First Amendment, right?
Right. Well, I should have mentioned, what I didn't say, I kind of buried the lead on this, is that what they're using as their main complaint is that the military is not holding a lot of religious services right now because of COVID-19, which they should be doing, which is correct. But as we know in this country, that's no reason to shut down church. So, outrage.
Nice.
Outrage among the people.
Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah, there you go. Well, listen, kids, if you have anything you'd like to say about any of this that we've been talking about, please feel free to write into us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah. Hey, also, will you do us a favor? Go to the Facebook page. It's just facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Just spell it all correctly and you'll be there. And then you can hit like and you'll be one of the people who likes us.
And, you can also search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge. and request to join. That's also on Facebook. And you should also find us on Twitter at TGI Atheist.
Do it.
There's more show coming up. Hey, Dan.
Yes.
This is a new guy for me. Is by the name of Greg Locke. Apparently, he's like this.
I don't think he's new. We've heard from him.
Are you sure?
But it's been years.
Oh, okay.
He's been off of our radar for a little minute.
Well, anyway, he is the pastor at the Global Vision Bible Church in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. And he's
and the Tennessee of his accent, I adore it. Can I just say, love how he sounds.
Anyway, he's got some things to say about masks and social distancing and whatnot. So,
and yes, exactly. Let's hear what he has to say. And I do want to say, I want to preface this by letting people know that this is one of those YouTube videos where, and this baffles me. I don't know why this is a thing, but he's driving while he says all this. So just know that he's in the car.
Gives us some action. It's a good action scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally. There is a moment also where he rips his sunglasses off dramatically.
Ooh.
So
let's see if you can hear that.
See if you can hear that. All right, here it goes.
We are destroying the local church of the Lord Jesus Christ in the United States because we're trying to placate to a culture that hates God in the first place. Jesus said the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church of God. And you think the government's going to prevail? You think COVID, some kind of pandemic is going to prevail? You think the left is going to prevail? No, ladies and gentlemen, we are being destroyed not from the outside in. We are being destroyed from the inside out. We have got to push back against this nonsense. Open your churches. This is ridiculous. There was a time when it all started, I thought, well, I'm not going to shame anybody for not open. I've changed my shame game 1,000%. I've changed my shame game. You know why? Because now you ought to be shamed. Because you ought to have your church open. And you ought to let people worship and hear preaching and pray and fast and give and show up for the fellowship of believers. Because again, the location isn't the power. The gathering is the power of God, ladies and gentlemen. And we have got to get back to preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Enough with all this padlocking the church doors. Let's just go online. No. Enough. I don't care if you're a mega church. I don't care if you're a church that has 5 people. Open the door. We have closed the hope centers of the United States. We need hope now more than ever. We need Jesus more than ever. We need preaching more than ever. We need the Bible and the authority of the Holy Spirit more than ever. We need to see God do something more than ever. And what are we doing? We're sitting around in our pajamas on our couches, sipping lattes with not enough power to blow the fuzz off a small peanut. Open up your churches. I don't care how mad you get. I don't care how upset. You can unfollow me. You can report me. People can get mad and say whatever they want to. I don't live under communism. I live under the Constitution of this great nation, which is still great and still free. And most of all, I live under the authority and the influence of a book that we call the Bible. And so I'm telling you churches and I'm telling you pastors, get a backbone, stand up, push back against this garbage, open up the churches. There is absolutely zero excuse for any church in America being closed right now over this COVID nonsense. Open the churches and let's watch revival fire fall.
Well, yeah, I mean it's hard to pass the plate around, right? If the churches are closed. Yeah. I am convinced
I did notice that when he was talking about like all the things that people are missing out on. Give people the chance to go to church and give them a chance to be with each other. He did mention giving as part of the thing. Give them a chance to give.
Yeah, because that's how he lives, right? Yeah. He lives off of people giving. And the only way, I mean, like, it's a huge hit, right? Like, people don't give if they're not going to church. Not in the same amount, you know? Unless you're Mormon. I'm assuming the Mormons are still paying their 10%.
Oh, yeah. Mormons are amazing at enforcing that. And I'm sure that
there are people who are still giving. But, like, come on. Yeah. I mean, there's this cynical part of me that knows that this is a huge part of this whole thing. Right?
I just think it's amazing. Like, why else would he think it's so important for everybody to get together and literally risk the lives of each of the parishioners.
Yeah. Well, so I was talking to my sister, and she lives in Oklahoma, and she said that all the it's mainly Baptist churches in her area, but all the churches are, they're still meeting on Sunday, but people pull up and they're doing drive-in church, right? They pull in the parking lot, they stay in their car, right? And then and they even keep space between the cars apparently, so they can roll down their windows, and then there's like a PA system. And the minister says his little thing, and they play some music, and all is good. And she says that it's like most of the churches, that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, I've been seeing videos of car horn, of like the honking of the horn is the new hallelujah.
Yeah, like I don't get what the hang up is. Like, why can't people? Like, why can't these guys adapt in that same way? Right? Like, what is, like...
Because they don't live under communism, Frank.
But... I know.
You damn commie.
I know. I'm such a communist. Jesus Christ.
I wish these guys would learn what communism is. Just learn what it is.
Oh, it's a scary word. That's what it is.
Yeah, all it is.
It's
yeah,
a
exactly.
great, scary word.
You might as well just say oogie boogie.
They know it gets people worked up. They don't need to know what it is.
They don't need to know what it is. All right, we had some folks write into us, so I will read what they had to say. This is from Gustav in Sweden, who says, "Greetings from a sunny Sweden." And it is sunny there these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although that's probably starting to change. Mm-hmm. I was listening to episode number 382.
Oh, I remember it well.
Oh, yes. We have all of our episodes fully memorized, so this will be good. About gender and the problem with the inelegant they instead of he or she.
Yeah,
apparently we talked about that. Yeah. Because it is I am on board honoring people's gender identity. I still hate they as a singular pronoun. But that's okay. I still use it.
Right.
I just don't like it.
Poor Dan.
Gustav goes on to say, we solved it by making up a new word. He equals han, she equals hon, and undefined equals hen. This was a couple of years ago, and it met resistance even in our secular country. So you don't have to be religious to be bigoted, but it helps.
Huh. So they just made up a new word.
Yeah, which has been attempted here.
Yeah.
It's just that nothing has taken. There's just been this, there was the Z-Zim thing or Z-Zer thing. But even then, it was like you have to choose between Zim and Zer. Doesn't that genderize it? Anyway, there's been a lot of attempts at this. I think it's exactly what needs to happen. We need a new word, a non-gendered pronoun would be brilliant. Yeah. We could use it for literally everybody instead of worrying about, what gender a person is. We can just have a pronoun. It's what should happen. Yeah. We just have to, something has to stick.
It's too bad that, and I'm not making a joke here at all, at all. It is too bad that the word it, right, has such a dehumanizing quality to it, because we already have a neutral word, right? But it's so dehumanizing.
Yeah, because we've only used it for objects ever.
And so but to find a word that feels like you're talking about a human being, right?
Right.
And that you're not Zer, Z, it just, there's something, it doesn't pass a test. I don't know why it doesn't, but just kind of the way it sounds doesn't pass the test. And I know that anything new would be new and would sound maybe, a little different at first, but
it's going to meet with resistance no matter what.
You gotta, there's something out there, and we just haven't found it yet, I think. That's me.
I'm hoping
we
that's
just
what's coming.
Borrow another language's word. The Swedes have already solved this problem for us. If we just,
just hen.
Just hen,
We're going to say hen from now on.
Why not?
What would be great is if we could come up with a word and then eliminate the genderized pronouns altogether. There's no point to them. We don't need them.
Yeah, that's
we could have non-gendered language. That'd be great.
I think
I'm on board.
I think getting people. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and that's your problem. That's the problem with borrowing from other languages. Half the other languages genderize even more.
Yeah,
they start to genderize articles and genderize objects and things.
Well, adjectives and whatnot. Yeah. It's tricky.
It's tricky. Anyway, I think we solved that. Great. Luke wrote into us. Hey guys, just stumbled across your podcast and I'm loving every episode.
Nice.
Well, that's great. That's why we did it this way. Anyway, it's interesting hearing about the religious perspective from the U.S. of A. It was actually Trump. I think Luke's Canadian.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. It was actually Trump winning the presidency that got me to start questioning my faith. I could not understand how Christians could support that pile of shit.
Ooh.
I guess I have him to thank for leading me down the path of knowledge.
Right.
So, at least one good thing came from 4 years of your guys' pain. Let's hope that this next election goes well, and if Canada ever lets the borders open to you guys again, we have an Airbnb on our farm. You guys are more than welcome to stay for free. Well, that's very sweet.
That is nice.
More people need to offer us free stuff, Frank. I think that's a trend that should solidly continue.
Well, thank you, Luke.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah. We're actually talking about this as kind of our topic for the last segment of the show.
Yeah, I think if I have hope. I think that Luke's case is not isolated. I think that there are a lot of people who have become disenchanted with the religious America because of its backing of this monster.
Yeah. Well, I just love that that's sort of the somebody's crisis of faith, right? Like, how could this man be president of the United States? How did religious people back him?
How did people who profess the same religion as me come to that conclusion?
It's amazing. Huh. All right.
Yeah. Worth crisising over for sure. Ash wrote into us, Hey, Frank and Dan. So happy to have recently found this podcast. I grew up in a very oppressive Lutheran synod, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod.
Ooh, okay.
Where women are seen as subordinate to men. Obvi. Homosexuals are promised eternal damnation in hell. Also another obvi. And people of color are not extended an invitation unless they get the sports programs recognition by drafting inner city students through their voucher programs.
Okay.
I'm pretty isolated, Ash goes on, in my atheism. Most of my peers generally consider themselves agnostic, as if the term atheist is a bad word. Huh. It's so refreshing to hear your rational conversations about the oppression of Christianity in the United States. While I'm not having the discussion with you both, I finally feel like I'm part of a dialogue that I identify with.
That's nice.
Well, man, I got to say, the word atheist is such a lightning rod.
It's been very effectively,
we really need to,
demonized. And
yeah, exactly. For centuries, obviously, it's been a bad thing. But I think we need to start using it far more openly and far more nonchalantly, because it's just, visibility. We've talked about it before, Frank. It's what got things working for the gay rights movement, the LGBTQ movement. It's all about visibility. And we need to start getting atheism way more visible.
Absolutely. And a voting bloc that's to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's hard. We're a group that's, we don't have sort of a single mind. We don't have a central leadership or anything, so to speak. And
right.
And so, it is hard to turn us into a political movement, but we need to figure this out. Somebody needs to figure this out. Like, how do we harness...
not us, specifically.
How do we harness...
Somebody smarter than we are.
These similarly minded, maybe not like-minded, but similarly minded people, but who all share this common interest of getting religion out of the public space, right? Yeah. Out of our government, out of our schools, finally... fully.
Yeah.
That's a conundrum. It's not an easy thing, but we need to start, and I think that would be a big part of it, right? Of like helping to create this identity and clearly stating who we are and being more visible and being more politically involved,
Well, and also just being more visible so that people like Ash don't feel like they're alone in the world.
Yeah.
Because guarantee, Ash, you are surrounded by other atheists.
It's true.
They're just not being noisy about it. So, sorry about that. That's no fun at all. Hey, we have some folks to thank, and I'm going to start us off.
Fantastic.
Actually, yeah. A couple people have jumped onto the PayPal platform to give us a little bit of money. So we have new PayPal donors. Filio and Damien. So thank you two so much for your donations. And then do we have some folks to thank over on Patreon?
We do indeed, Dan. We have two new patrons to thank this week. They both came in at the teacher level, and this is the second office of the Aaronic priesthood. So 14 and 15-year-olds, right?
Of the Moronic priesthood,
right?
Of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Derp.
So we have Isaac and Edgy as new teachers and new patrons to thank this week. And as always, we have our top donor, our Lord and Savior, Davis.
Oh, still on the throne, Davis. Well done.
Yeah, and what all these fine folk have done is they went to our website, thankgodimatheist.com, and clicked on the support tab and followed it on over to Patreon, where they signed up at their specific level. And there's a bunch of levels.
Well,
so thank you guys.
Yeah, you get to choose. It's whatever you're comfortable with. We're not going to push anything on you. We're not here to tell you what to do.
But thank you one and all.
Yeah. You're amazing.
Dan.
Hey.
This question of Trump, right? And why specifically white evangelicals really got behind him and supported him and voted him. There's kind of this idea that they really only did it for the Supreme Court, right? And that they've kind of just been looking the other way, sort of plugging their nose, and ended up voting for him, knowing that he was such a flawed character.
But thinking of it as a pragmatic choice. They couldn't allow. They didn't like the guy. They didn't want him to be president, but they certainly couldn't let Hillary be president, or they couldn't let a Democrat in. So they like you say, they held their nose. They made the pragmatic choice and hoped for the best.
And there's a new theory out. From, let's see, her name is
Kristen Dumez. Do we say Dumez? Dumay?
I'm going to go with Dumez.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's a historian. She teaches at Calvin University in Michigan, and she's been looking at the evangelicals for quite some time. And she has a new book out. It's called Jesus and John Wayne: How White Evangelicals Corrupted a Faith and Fractured a Nation. And it's a really... We didn't read the book, of course not. But
why would we do that? Somebody else wrote a very short summary of it. We don't need to read it now.
Well, Jana Reese over at Religion News Service, she's kind of there. She's on the Mormon beat. But she writes about other things as well, of course. But she does a little rundown of it, and it's really quite fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's see.
If by fascinating you mean terrifying.
Yeah. She says that according to Dumas, that these white evangelical voters actually like Trump, and that they've in a lot of ways they've been preparing for him for decades. She says evangelical support for Trump was no aberration, nor was it merely a pragmatic choice, she writes in the book. It was rather the culmination of evangelicals' embrace of militant masculinity, an ideology that enshrines patriarchal authority and condones the callous display of power at home and abroad. And she...
literally, that's what this is, like... And we shouldn't be that surprised about this. Anyone who's seen video of a Trump rally understands that these are not people making a pragmatic decision. These are wholehearted, jumping in the deep end lovers of this man.
So she really looks at sort of the rise of feminism in America, right? That evangelicals were sort of unsettled by this.
You think?
And she also
unsettled is one way of putting it.
And she also talks about the Vietnam War, right? And so she says that the Vietnam was a critical moment because for evangelicals, because it pitted Christian America against the threat of communism, right? And essentially America lost. Right.
Yeah.
And the evangelical Christians were deeply disturbed by this and judged it as a failure of American manhood. Right. And there's been a bunch of books that have come out from the evangelical perspective that have really promoted this version of masculinity that's sort of this rugged warrior, right, type of a figure.
This sort of Ayn Rand can do anything by himself. It's Chuck Norris writ large onto every man in the country.
Right. And
it's like they saw a representation of toxic masculinity and they went, how can we make this more toxic? Is there a way that we can really just ramp up that toxicity? Because that's what we're looking for.
How do we get that? Yeah. And I mean, this is a community like she ties a lot of things together that I remember sort of like hearing through the years. Like evangelicals are definitely like hands-on parents, meaning they usually support, corporal punishment, spanking. Right. In fact, when I was still in school, in high school in Oklahoma, it was still legal for the schools even to paddle. Right. It was more of an opt-out type setting or situation. Right. It was just corporal punishment was still a thing, which is, I remember when we moved from California, it was just like, excuse me, what? Right. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, they've also, another threat that they sort of spotted was desegregation. When she says, when you look at this too, it was about asserting the authority of white patriarchy. When you look at how they were justifying segregation, it's about seeing white men as protectors of vulnerable white womanhood and the rights of the family over and against the federal government. This militant evangelical masculinity is a distinctively white masculine ideal, and it is one that is justified even if it includes violence.
Yeah, especially if it includes violence.
She says, God made men strong. He gave them testosterone to make them aggressive so that they can defend their family, their church, and their nation. That's her, of course, talking about their worldview of this whole thing. And so if you think about the 2016 election in terms of feminism, the threats of feminism, war, and racial equality, Hillary Clinton and Democrats in general were probably pretty terrifying, right, to these people.
What's funny about that is that Hillary Clinton showed no sign of shying away from a war. Like, I had no doubt that woman, I saw nothing in her that said she wouldn't jump into a war if she got the itch to do it. But but it would be a woman doing it,
right? Which
doesn't make any sense. How could she go to war? She's got a period. It doesn't, like, she doesn't have muscles. It's this weird idea of masculinity, which is like no feelings, no emotions, all muscles. It's a man. It's what a man is like. Which, I mean, you know, the evangelicals are not really strong on the science, but anybody who's looked at any psychological study of manhood and of masculinity can see that, like, this John Wayne version of masculinity is about as bad for the man and all of the people around that man as you can possibly get.
Yeah. So, yeah. And Trump found a way to appeal to those people.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it was him actively going after it or being coached to go after it. He was kind of the perfect storm, you know, like the way how crass he is, and how
they love it.
They love it, and the chanting of "lock her up" and like this, their whole. He's perfect.
Well,
he's absolutely perfect for them.
Do you remember he would have rallies, and if somebody yelled something against him, he would encourage people in the rally to beat them up.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the guy that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a guy who I mean, first of all, a narcissist is perfect for them. Because literally he just goes on the attack for no reason if somebody criticizes anything about him, and that is awesome for them.
Yeah. And if you think about him, and back to like sort of the crassness of him and everything, how do evangelicals get behind this man who's had 3 marriages, God knows how many affairs, right?
But documented affairs. We know that he's had affairs.
Yeah. We have audio of him talking about grabbing a woman by the pussy.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and also in that same audio talking about like having an affair, talking about trying to have an affair with a woman and failing at that.
Right. And so how does that fit in to how could evangelicals possibly tolerate this man? Well, Dumez points out that that evangelicals have readily forgiven pastor after pastor after pastor who has been caught up in some kind of scandal, whether it was sexual misconduct, abuses of power, whatever, right? Like they can, and then she specifically mentions people and cites them, like Bill Hybels, the founder of the Willow Creek megachurch in Chicago, in the Chicago suburbs, who conducted sexually inappropriate relationships with multiple women over the course of years, who apparently is still a figure. There's, if you think about Mark Driscoll, that's a name that people should remember. The Mars Hill Church in Seattle, he was the lead pastor there. He resigned because of his domineering style of leadership and accusations of abusive behavior. Right. Well, he's down at some church now in like Arizona. Right.
Well, and also the qualities
that forgive him, like they continually they get shamed.
But it's not just that they forgive him. Those same qualities that he resigned for, those abusive qualities, are the abuse is the flip side of the coin that got him where he was, that got him so popular. They love the fire in him. They love the fury in him. They love the aggression and the anger and the like all of these things that feel manly and powerful and angry and fighty and whatever. And then, then they're all shocked when he's a dick in real life to actually, like, face to face to people. They're all like, whoa, we didn't see that coming at all.
Right. But again, when these guys are forced to step down at one church, they quickly find their way over to some other church.
Yeah.
The memory of like their transgressions is very short. Like they barely have a blip in their career, right? And so she paints this picture of the evangelical world that is damning. But that completely makes sense for how they could possibly support Trump.
Sure. It's so funny. We talk about this sort of this masculinity, this toxic masculinity, and I know some of our listeners right now are bristling at that term. Don't. Just get over it. There is not all masculinity is toxic,
right?
But a certain kind of masculinity very much is. And this idea of like we're not allowed to have feelings and we're not supposed to, we're not supposed to be pussies and all this stuff. That's toxic. It's not toxic. It's toxic to the world, but it's toxic to the self, to the man, to the person who's exhibiting that. It's not. Well, it's unhealthy.
It's toxic to the young boys who don't take to that, who have to grow up in that environment.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's toxic to the ones that do take to it because the mental gymnastics that they have to go through, the mental and emotional gymnastics, in order to be that character, right?
Right.
It sucks.
It's
right?
terrible.
It's horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And nowhere is that a worse problem than in evangelical America, where every man is supposed to be, this powerful, awesome, intelligent, ready to fight at the drop of a hat, ready to stand up for what he knows is true with a gun. Sort of that idea is so pervasive in that culture.
They're supposed to be intelligent?
They're supposed to be. They know everything. The point is they're not allowed to not know things.
Right.
So it's not like so.
I don't think it's a celebration of education.
No, not at all. And I specifically didn't say educated.
Right.
But the fact is that they can't let on to the fact that they may there's nobody saying, oh, you know what, I don't actually know enough about masks and disease. I should go learn more. I instantly know everything there is. I am an expert on diseases and masks. Let me tell you something. COVID-19, it's bullshit, man. I know. I saw 2 YouTube videos about it. It's some crazy bullshit.
Right.
It's all of that sort of thing. I remember seeing, and that's what they embrace about Donald Trump. He knows stuff. He doesn't. He never learned it. He just knows what's right. Yeah. And then later he knows that you don't need a mask. That's stupid and whatever. And then finally he's convinced that he has to. And then he pretends like that was his thing all along. I actually saw an online forum. I don't know. I was on Facebook or somewhere. I don't remember where I saw it, and I definitely don't remember who said it. But I saw someone defending Donald Trump in a very surprising venue, and one of the things he said was, "Well, let me tell you something. He's big. He could kick somebody's ass." I'm like, what? That dude is 74 years old. I could kick his ass, and I'm not a fighter. But that guy is. Have you seen him? He can barely. I mean, he golfs. But he is definitely not in shape.
Right.
He is one hamburger away from exploding at any given moment. Anyway, but the whole thought is but what was amazing was that this guy was convinced that meant something.
It's a vital part of his of who he is as a man. Right. Yeah. He's less of a man if he can't beat up somebody.
Right.
Right. So, of course, since he is the apex, human,
of manhood.
then he must be able to beat people up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's astonishing.
There's toxic masculinity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you can't beat somebody up, that you can still be a manly man. That's okay. Anyway, it's crazy. We really have to sort of, this is what we're fighting. You know, believe in Jesus if you need to, but culturally we need to really start looking deeply into these myths of who we're supposed to be, what we're calling on people to be, and fix that.
Yeah,
it's gross, and it led us to a monster in the White House.
Oh, God.
Well, all right. That was plenty of things for people to react to. If you want to write us an angry email, please feel free to do so. You can do it, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Yeah. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click like. You know you wanna.
And while you're on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group, but we will let you in. Also find us on Twitter @TGIAtheist.
So thanks to all of our new mods and everyone that helps us with our social media.
And a big thanks goes out to the Red Rock Hot Club and to Gordon Johnston for the use of their music.
And thanks to all of you, dear friends, for tuning in.
Bye-bye.